This ain't just a Toy Story or a foreign unboxing. These are the stories of action, toy glory, and we're clocking. SH Figuarts, Black Series, or Hot Toys. And figures with transformation sequences that make noise. Check out the joints and the many points of articulation. We're celebrating the global collector nation. Sit back, relax, and get ready to rock this. Here's the real
Welcome
Chow.
to a new
Welcome
episode
to
of Shelf Conscious. I am Keith Chow. Joining me this time is an old buddy. We've been friends for a few years now. He's been a contributor to some of my projects, including Secret Identities, and he's a dope artist based out in the Pacific Northwest and a fellow toy collector. Please welcome to Shelf Conscious, ECE.
Hey, Keith, what's going on, man? Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. I can tell you're a fan of the show because you're like, let me set my camera up right in front of my perfectly displayed shelves.
Oh yeah, man! Big fan of the show. It's been actually a lot of fun listening to all the episodes, and honestly, like it's a hard act to follow. The guests that you've had on, man. I mean, like Larry alone is so huge. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm really honored and thankful that you would think to have me on, man.
Of course. No, I mean, I love chatting up with my fellow toy collectors, and you specifically I wanted to talk to because I know you have a very eclectic collection, but specifically you kind of dive into the 6 scale stuff, because I know like when I first showed some of my hot toys, you were like, oh yeah, welcome to, welcome to the club, bro. But like, it's something I've resisted for a long time, honestly, because I've always wondered, like, folks who like primarily base their collection in like the 6 scale figures, I always just wonder, like, first of all, how the fuck? And second of all, like, it's like toy collecting already is not a cheap hobby. How do you maintain collecting like Hot Toys and Sideshow and 3A, like all the like those upscale figures, without delving into like your financial situation?
Honestly,
how much money do you make is what I'm saying, Earl.
No comment. But Sideshow actually has a payment plan thing, which I only recently found out about and has been very dangerous, but also great because I've been able to secure stuff that normally, I mean, BBTS, Big Bad Toy Store, for the longest time was my go-to. I've been a big fan and customer of theirs since like, I think like 08, something like that is about when I started buying through them. And they were really cool because you could pre-order stuff without putting anything down. And, but then the flip side is that when it comes, like, you got to have that money ready. You know what I mean? So sometimes it can be a surprise. So the Sideshow thing is really nice because you put in your deposit and then you can just pay it incrementally. And then when it's ready to go, it goes. And also lately, as the 6 scale hobby, it's so weird to me when people call it a hobby, but we're just buying stuff. It's not really a hobby, but as it's become more popular with collectors, like I think BBTS has kind of realized, like, hey, we can't just keep letting people pre-order these things for free. So a lot of them you'll have to put down a pre-order like a deposit anyway. So at that point, it's like, well, I might as well just go to Sideshow then, because I recently found out that Sideshow is actually the only licensed distributor for Hot Toys in America. So everybody that sells Hot Toys is getting their stuff through Sideshow at the end. So that's a huge thing. I noticed on their website, they're offering a firm now, which could be really great for a lot of people, I'm sure. For me personally, as far as like collecting was, back in the day, I used to just buy everything. You know what I mean? Like if you see a cool little figure, $5, $20, whatever, just drop that. And I was spending and wasting so much money this way. And I don't regret it, but at the same time, at a certain point, when I started getting into 1/6, it was like, well, I could just, instead of doing that, I can just save my money and, then just get like this one, really dope figure with like all these cool accessories and costuming and stuff. And that's kind of been the MO for the past decade plus. I think the first one I got was the Sideshow Snake Eyes. And because, he just had all these like guns and grenades and stuff, and it looked so cool. And I've actually seen in the background of some of Larry's photos, like he has that same figure, which was like extremely validating for me. I was like, it's good enough for Larry, it's good enough for me. You know what I mean?
That thing came out like what, 2008, 2009? That thing's been out for like, it came out a long time ago, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty old. They had this whole line of G.I. Joe stuff, but And I kind of wanted to get into those, but the Snake Eyes one was the only one I ever pulled the trigger on. The first Hot Toys that I got though was shortly after that. It was the Heath Ledger Joker, and a big impetus in that was actually because the regular, like, I don't remember how big it was, maybe between 4 and 6 inches tall. Like the regular toy was just sold out everywhere because all these scalpers were just buying it up. And I was like, it was such.
That was the Movie Master, right? The Mattel Movie Master figure you're talking about, right?
Yeah, with the blue card back.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, people were just.
It's not even that great a figure. Like
it's not.
Like looking
really
back. I remember, man. Like I was so into the Movie Masters back in 2008, man. Like that was what really got me just gung ho into like 6-inch, because I think before that, like I did, I've always loved toys. I wouldn't do a fucking toy podcast if I didn't, but I never was like 6 inches my scale until Movie Masters came out, and like the DC Universe Classic stuff, like all that stuff is what really was like, okay, all my collection now is going to be 6-inch. I got rid of a bunch of 3 3/4 stuff I used to have, and I never got into 6 scale. Or like I had this Keaton Batman behind me for a while, which I know is actually a really rare figure now, but I've had it for a while because my uncle just gave it to me when I went to Hong Kong like 10 years ago at this point, maybe. And he's just like, I have this. Do you want it? And I was like, yeah. But I never took it out of the box. Like it's always been sitting in its like shipper box for 5 or 6 years. And then, in fact, when I first opened it, I was worried, like, did the rubber deteriorate? Because it's just been sitting in this box for years. Not really. I mean, maybe a little bit, but once I opened it, I was like, holy shit, I get it now. I know why people drop like 3 or 4 bones on this shit. And I finally, took the dive on the deluxe Mando, which I've shown a few times now on the podcast. Yeah. And then I got the Birds of Prey Harley Quinn with the caution tape and the egg sandwich, because how can you not buy a 6 scale egg sandwich? So like I'm now fully committed. I don't know if I'm gonna get other 6 scale stuff, but like opening Batman, opening Mando, I'm like, I get it now. I know why people like go into Hot Toys and not just Hot Toys specifically, but like that 6 scale line. But yeah, man, that's like, how many figures do you have have you like ever done a count?
God, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely double digits. But I haven't counted. I think it's like somewhere between 20 and 30, which isn't like super crazy. I've seen a lot of cats have just like ridiculous collections, and it's really interesting to me just kind of the range of interests that people have and how they go about their collecting. Like there's a contingent of folks that put a lot of value in that brown shipper box. You know what I mean? I don't have space for that shit. I just fucking break the motherfuckers down and toss them in recycling. You know what I mean? Like I use tackle boxes to keep all the accessories, which is like a huge space saver, but there are people who will fully rent out like storage units just to store their boxes. And I'm just like, dude, I can't.
Empty boxes?
Yeah, just to store their empty boxes.
That's crazy.
I'm like, no, man,
they're nice boxes, but at the end of the day, like, yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I only have 2 Hot Toys right now, but like, I still have the boxes. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely an open package guy. Although, like, for most of my collection, because they're the 6 scale stuff, I do have like just a pile of boxes unopened. Not because I'm trying to keep them like on card or in boxes, just like there were impulse buys that I was at Target and I just grabbed it. And now it's it's nowhere to display. I have like limited space. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I have to like make a decision about what goes up on the shelf and what like goes in the bin. Do you have everything displayed, or do you have to like cycle in?
God, no. Yeah, no. It's I definitely have to kind of cycle a little bit. And to be honest, like a lot of my collection, my early stuff is back home on the East Coast at my mom's house. And I can't front, man. I have a couple boxes that are like really nice from like, but I mean, like, what I'm saying with like kind of how Hot Toys got big and got more expensive, and but then started cutting the corners in other areas. Like if you look at the packaging on your Batman Returns figure and your Mando, you know what I mean? Like it's a world of difference from that like custom cut foam to like, you know, just the plastic, like the clear plastic clamshell, you know what I mean? So like it's kind of like around there, like when they made that shift, I'm like, okay, these boxes aren't necessarily worth me hanging on to and stuff. But like, you know, some of the older ones, I'm like, man, this is just, it's too nice. And if not like it's an investment, you know what I mean? But should I ever need to sell one of the rare like old figures, and like that's there too, you know.
So you've held on to all of them though, right? Like there aren't any that you like had to get rid of. You still have like that Snake Eyes and everything else.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, that Snake Eyes is he's in storage in my mom's house, but still in the original packaging and all that. And like, you know, I've actually this is that that Ledger Joker, man.
Yeah.
This was the big fall down the slippery slope. You know what I'm saying?
All you needed was a little push, like he says in the movie, right?
Man. It's like I just wanted to honor his performance. You know what I'm saying? And those.
Well, I see you have several Dark Knight. I mean, you got is that Harvey Dent and Bruce Wayne over your right shoulder?
Oh no, I don't. That's Alfred and Bruce Wayne.
Oh, Alfred and Bruce Wayne. Yeah. With the suit in the chamber, whatever.
Yeah, the little armory thing. Yeah, man. Like the Dark Knight was such a great source of figures for Hot Toys, man. I've got. I don't know if they even show up. I don't think they're going to show up on camera here, but like. I've got like a whole row of Batman. I've only got one Bale Batman, but then I've got like three Batflecks, which is kind of weird because I remember when the BVS one first came out and you sent me, you're like, yo, they're doing BVS. And I was like, oh no, man, I don't like that suit. But like that figure is like really hard to find now. That's a chase figure, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny though, right? Because like I remember when BVS came out, like before it came out, like the first time they showed Affleck in the suit, I was not sold on the idea of like introducing a new Batman after, especially so close to like the Dark Knight, right? Like I've gone on record that like if they really wanted to build a DC universe that would rival Marvel's, you just bring Bale back, especially if like Affleck's an older Batman, you know, like you already had a Batman for the last 10 years. Why don't you just bring him back? But anyway, I mean, that's you know, fodder for another podcast. But when they revealed the Affleck in the suit, I think like he's looking down and he's standing next to the Batmobile.
Right.
Like, shit. Like that's the suit I've always wanted in a Batman movie. You know what I mean? And then, you know, I have my reservations about the Snyderverse, but I love like the look of Affleck as Batman. And so I didn't go as far as like Hot Toys, but I talked about this on the last podcast. I got the Mezco Batman and Superman. Never took them out of package, mostly because once I opened them, I don't know, there's just something about maybe the scale and the fabric they used. I wasn't feeling it. Like especially Cavill, like he looks like he's wearing pajamas in the 112 scale. Like the 6 scale Cavill looks dope. Like I think because they're using like a more of like a lycra material or something.
They got all the texturing and stuff.
Yeah, but on a 6-inch figure, when you're using cloth, it just looks like he's fucking wearing pajamas, and I'm like, this is dumb. Why do I have this? But I don't know.
Yeah, man. You know, it's funny because I was like, I mean, like I was okay with the suit. I was like, I see they're doing like the Frank Miller thing. They got the Frank Miller bats or sign, and you know the short ears and stuff. But the actual like promo photos of the figure, I was just like not super sold on. But then I ended up getting like the Justice League one. I was like, damn, this is actually really great. Like super beefy, you know what I mean? Like it's like just fucking powerful, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like that, I mean, this is like, you know, kind of diversion from toys and stuff, but like even like Batfleck, once I saw the movie, like my first reaction the first time I saw the film, I was just like, dude, he's murdering people, he's murdering everybody with guns. You know what I mean? Like, what the hell's going on? But honestly, man, like I love Ben Affleck's portrayal of Batman. I've come to love it, and I mean, like being from Boston.
I was going to say that's just the Boston in you, man. I wonder how much that has to do. Batman's from Boston now.
100% factor. That's 100% a factor.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, I go back and I think he gives a great performance, and I know we are veering off the toys, but we can circle back because we were talking about Mattel a little bit, and I just remember, I know that your 6-inch collection is not as varied as your 12-inch ones, but like Mattel put some dog shit out when BVS came out. I don't know if you remember, but like, I mean, their movie masters for Dark Knight weren't great, but like, Jesus Christ, you remember like how shitty the BVS figures were?
Those head sculpts were not good. Which and that's a huge part of why I love 6 scale so much. You know what I mean? Is just because it gives them more room to work. It's the frustrating thing that you see in the community too, because every time Hot Toys posts a promo photo, like there'll just be this whole peanut gallery of people being like, "Oh, it doesn't look like a middle." You know what I mean? It's like this is incredibly hard to do, man. And
right.
It looks pretty good.
The artistry of it, I think, does get lost in a lot of like, I mean, the toy community can be a bunch of dickheads, just like any fan community on it. Like, I don't want to just put it on toy collectors because I think at the same time, toy collectors are a beautiful community. Like, folks help each other out, and I know if you in certain groups, they'll like look out for each other in different parts of the country to like, find shit that doesn't get distributed where you are, and I find it, and I can send it to you, whatever, blah blah blah. Like, that's cool too.
Right.
But just like any fandom, there's always the loud and the stupid that like when G.I. Joe Classified has been so hard to find. Hasbro, anytime Hasbro says anything online, it's like 1,000 replies of like, fuck you, Hasbro. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I get it, like they're not everyone is civilized, but yeah, it's incredibly hard, like sculpting paint on a mass scale, especially like you think about like retail. The advancements a lot of these companies have made since even BVS came out is like wild. Like if you look at like the digital face printing technology like Hasbro uses on their MCU and their Black Series figures.
Oh, dude, like, I had to get that Paul Rudd just because of that, man.
Like, how do you, like, to your point, like, how do you get that level of detail on a 6-inch figure, much less a 12-inch figure? It's like, it's remarkable. I mean, I'm jealous of all the people who are collecting for the first time and not even realizing how shitty some of the sculpts and paints were back in the day.
Yeah, dude. Like, I mean, like a lot of people that you've had, I started with like, 3.75 GI Joes like back in the 80s and stuff. And then like in the 90s, that Power of the Force line was huge for me. I had so many of those. But looking back at those figures, like it's not even just the face sculpts. Like, I mean, like Dagobah Luke is like jacked, you know what I mean? Like he's huge.
He's like a He-Man figure.
Yeah, right. They're kind of just doing whatever they wanted to do. Something else I actually really enjoy is there's a ton of Japanese companies that do really, really great work. And like they'll almost always be extremely stylized in terms of like the face sculpt and stuff, but like just as far as like the quality of the figure build and like the articulation and stuff, like, I mean, like for the smaller scale stuff, I absolutely love that stuff still.
Yeah, I definitely, I think the decision I made was rather than go down the 6 scale rabbit hole, like for a time I was just like, I was definitely in Japanese imports. So I got a bunch of like figure arts and a bunch of like Mafex figures. And I think like part of the, the build quality is definitely better. The engineering is better. I think the QA on some of them, especially in the early days, like I think now figure arts and Mafex are a lot more, sturdier than they were. But going back to like BVS, I remember I had the Batfleck from Mafex, and that shit fell apart. Like I looked at it too hard one time, and it just fell apart because it was like, and part of it too is that like when I talk about how much you spend on 6 scale, but like when you're spending $100 on like a 6-inch figure, like proportionally, it's probably like you could just spend another $100 and get the same thing in a much bigger scale. But, and I'm not trying to like say like people are wasting their money on anything, but you would think if you're going to drop that much money on a figure, that shit better like stay together. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And that's a common complaint I see with a lot of Hot Toys collectors, particularly those that live in like Southeast Asia where it's humid, and they'll suffer a lot of degradation on stuff like rubber and pleather in particular, like starts.
But that's what I was worried with Keaton Bats, right? Because his whole suit is rubber, And yeah, I mean that's the thing. I think that's the case with like a lot of toys, though, right? Like, back in the day, like they would use rubber pieces on figures, and without even touching them, like they start falling. Like I had a Clayface from like the animated series collection, and his arms were rubber. And like I sold it before it completely fell apart on me, because you could just start seeing like, just the pieces just chipping away. And I have a lot of old toys from like the 80s where like the Batman has been inside the Batmobile for 30 years. And then when you take him out, he's all warped and like the plastic gets sticky. I don't know if you have any toys old enough that like, apparently if they don't get enough oxygen, like the plastic or whatever starts, I don't know, sticking. I don't know. It's weird.
The last time I was at my mom's house actually, and I was digging through all my stuff, one of my homies gave me this like Dragon Quest controller that's shaped like one of their blue slimes, and it was kind of like this sort of like soft, like rubbery plastic type coating on it, and I dug it out, and it's gross, man. It's like it's whatever that chemical reaction is, the stickiness that happened to that controller. I was just like, oh god, like we don't want to touch it. You know what I mean?
So you said you were always into toys ever since you could remember.
Yeah, man. Yeah, definitely. Shout out to my parents.
Yeah, good parents. Like they're the ones who. It's always their fault, right? Because it's not like we had the disposable income to start buying GI Joes.
Yeah, right.
Like had they not bought them for us, maybe we would be more financially secure in our adult age. But was there ever, I've asked everyone this, like, was there a period where you kind of fell out of the hobby and then came back later, or were you were consistent, like, I don't give a shit what people say, I'm 20 years old buying toys, I don't give a fuck, like, or was there like a period in high school where you're like, I don't fuck with toys anymore?
Nah, man. I mean, I've always been kind of true to myself in that sense, you know what I'm saying? And it's never really been a hindrance to me, like socially or anything like that. Like, this is just a thing I'm into, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, in high school, like I was really like finding my identity as an Asian American in America, you know what I'm saying? So I had like fucking K-pop posters and shit on my wall. Like, that's just not fucking like cool. I mean,
back then, at least. Now, right. Again, people take for granted like you couldn't just be into that stuff back in the 90s or whatever.
Yeah, man. I remember I had this like import magazine, and one of my boys was like, dude, that was the most like pastel looking bullshit I've ever seen. I'm just like, whatever, dude, this is my culture, this is my people, bro.
And so that translated into like your toy collecting. Like you already were like, I know who I am, I don't have to like pretend I'm not into action figures.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was just such a big part of my childhood, particularly that GI Joe line was so iconic for me, and so like foundational in everything that I've become as an adult. And talking about even deterioration, man, those O-rings back in the day, them motherfuckers would snap all the time, dude. Like, you'd be doing like surgery and like building like hybrid like Frankenstein
using like actual rubber bands. I remember doing that when I was a kid. Like, I had like some random ass like blue rubber band I would find and have to like engineer, sci-fi's legs together or something.
Right, dude. I remember I was playing in the basement once, and like a vehicle went off the table and like landed on the concrete, and like the Snake Eyes with the butterfly knives on the chest like was in a turret, and like it like shattered on the concrete from the impact, and I was just fucking heartbroken for ages.
I want to talk about GI Joe actually, since that seems to be the constant on this show so far. Is that was almost the starter kit for most of the folks I've talked to. I mean, and I also had Larry Hama on too, so like
right.
Humble brag. Pick that name I just dropped. Would you please, Earl? For me too, it was a foundational line, and not just the line, but the comics. Like, I've talked about how much Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow's relationship kind of informed how I viewed the world in a lot of ways. Like, and to see like that line kind of coming back. We talked about Classified. We have a movie coming out. It's not the like cultural zeitgeisty thing that it was, I think, in the 80s. which I think is actually kind of cool because now it doesn't have to be everything to everybody. Henry Golding is Snake Eyes. I think I'm happier for that than like anything else I've ever had in my life, because like, you know, I've talked about this a lot too, not only on this podcast, but in life, that the idea of Snake Eyes not being Asian American is what really informed like how I viewed representation in media, right? Because like a character that could be anything to anybody had to be defined by whiteness, meant to me that like, what does that mean for people who look like me? And that's really what informed like the whole Iron Fist thing that we did at the Nerds of Color. Like, it really wasn't about Iron Fist. I even told Larry this. It was because like the issue where you see Snake Eyes as a white dude just broke me when I was like, I don't know, 8 years old or whatever. And like kind of set me down this path ultimately. I didn't know it at the time, but like to like doing Secret Identities and the Nerds of Color and all this stuff. So like to come full circle in my 40s now and have fucking Henry Golding as Snake Eyes, like it, I don't know. It's like, it's one of those things. It's like, you didn't think it would ever happen in your lifetime. And now that it has, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to do after July 23rd. Like the movie is out. There's an Asian Snake Eyes. Like my life is literally complete at that. Like that's been my life quest since I was 5 years old, and now we're here. I had nothing to do with it, of course, but I will bask in the glory. Like, just talk about your journey with G.I. Joe from like childhood to now, and how has that kind of like informed who you are as an artist, as a person, as a collector?
Man, you know, I just loved it so much. Like with the cartoon and the toys, the file cards, and like just all the stuff Larry was writing about, like, you know, they use like 5.56 NATO, and you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it just lent this sense of like authenticity and weight to everything, you know what I mean? And like I would have these like massive, like ongoing elaborate stories, like, you know what I mean, when I go play and stuff, you know what I mean, like pick it up the next day and like carry on this thing, you know what I mean? And I think that was kind of instrumental in eventually, you know, wanting to get into sequential art and storytelling in that sense, you know what I mean? It's kind of like the building blocks of that. So G.I. Joe, man, it's, you know, kind of what you were saying with that whole representation, you know what I'm saying? Like it was like Storm Shadow was my favorite character because he was a badass dude and he was Asian, you know what I'm saying? And like people don't really realize these days, everybody kind of, I mean, like with the whole representation matters stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like, kind of like what you're saying, like people take for granted the struggle that we had, you know what I'm saying, 20, 30 years ago. 30 years, geez, 40?
40 years, that's crazy. Yeah, no, but the story, like Storms of Shadow is an excellent example. And Larry talked about this when he was on, that like when he was given the characters and he was like, oh, the only Asian character is a bad guy. Well, let me slowly turn him into a good guy. And like the camo Storm Shadow was like, talk about favorite. It was the camo Storm Shadow.
Yes.
When he was a good guy, when he was finally fully joined G.I. Joe and like had that like urban camo suit. That was my favorite.
Dude, 100%. That's my absolutely, if I had to pick one from like the old school set, that's it, man. With like the Wolverine claw and like the red backpack. Like, yo, that was my shit, 100%, dude. Because I was like, you know, now I'm not rooting for a villain. You know what I mean? Like the character that I love is like a good guy. Now I can like justifiably like be a fan of this dude and like root for him.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because it's like, otherwise, what do we have? Like fucking Quick Kick? You know what I mean?
Like, no shoes.
Yeah, no shoes and like doing like Humphrey Bogart imitations and shit. Like
that's the other thing about Storm Shadow that I think got lost in translation, literally, is that folks like us who read the comics knew that not only was Storm Shadow, you know, more than just like the bad guy ninja, he was Asian American. Like he was from California. He fought in Vietnam alongside Stalker and Snake Eyes.
Right.
And like for folks who only saw the cartoon or only know the movies or just like have a superficial kind of, and this is not about fans versus real fans or whatever. It's just about like if your exposure to G.I. Joe was only the cartoons or just even the movies, your perception of Storm Shadow is that, yeah, he's a foreign guy with an accent. Like, you know, not that there's anything wrong with accents, but like there's definitely a difference between what does it mean to be an Asian American versus like an Asian, you character. And like,
Right.
if you read the comics, his name was Tommy. He grew up in Fresno. He fought in the war. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was just something you did not see. And it's not something I necessarily consciously thought about as a kid, but
Right.
like in retrospect, that just the idea that like, oh wow, there's a character in my favorite comic book who's just like me. And that's what like Tommy Arashikage represented to me, unknowingly as a child, but definitely in retrospect as an adult.
Yeah, and it's kind of wild to think about that, like whatever casting or vocal direction decisions were made, that, there was that firm decision of, we're going to give him an accent. And I think it's like Francois Chow actually did his voice back in the day, right? Didn't actually have to deliver that performance, but that's what he was asked to do. And so he's in there with this very fobby accent that just sort of serves to kind of other him from the other characters, or the real American heroes. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a really interesting thing, man. Like when you had Larry on earlier, and he was talking about, in my mind, Storm Shadow has a Texan accent. I was just like, that's amazing. Like I want to see that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I will say, like, the one thing that I'm a little, I mean, disappointed is not the right word, but like, I do wish that Andrew Koji in the new Snake Eyes movie played Storm as an American. Like, I don't think it's his job. It's like the writer and the director. Like, they're definitely going for more of a global, international flair with, like, Snake and Storm being in Japan and everything, and not having the, like, I mean, it wouldn't make sense for them to have fought in the Vietnam War together. They'd be like in their 80s right now. But at least I kind of wish that they Andrew Koji plays American on Warrior. Like, it's not like he can't do an American accent. I mean, they're both doing like weird British accents. That's the other thing that's like throwing me off in the trailer. Is like, can Henry Golding speak in an American accent? I don't know about that. But other than that, like, that's, eventually he's not going to talk anyway, so it doesn't matter. But, and Andrew's not playing Storm as an American, and the character's not necessarily an American, but at least what I'm appreciating is that they're leaning into the relationship between Storm and Snake. And that's the other thing that I think a lot of like the interpretations thus far have missed. Even the cartoon, I know that there were some instances in the cartoon where I think they team up, but there was never that like tortured story of like the brothers who fell out of favor who come back together. That's like, that was the ultimate thing about their relationship.
They kind of alluded to it here and there in the recent films like Rise of Cobra and Retaliation, but it wasn't really, I don't think it was really well executed, and it definitely wasn't true to the source material where they had them meeting like as young children and stuff. And actually, you know what, those Retaliation figures are the first Hot Toys that I got after the Joker, Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, because as much as it was like canonically and racially inaccurate, I was so stoked to have a Korean Storm Shadow. You know what I mean? Just being like a Korean American, you know what I mean? To see Lee Byung-hun playing him, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, and then even when they had the younger actor playing him, like that kid's speaking Korean too. It's just like, whatever, man, I'll take it. You know what I mean? Like this is for me, I guess. But I am super happy to see Andrew Koji taking on the role and actually having a Japanese actor or Japanese somebody with Japanese ethnicity, taking on the character, man. It's it's right, you know what I mean? And it's cool that they're doing that, and just hand in hand with Henry Golding's casting, just fantastic.
No, I love it. I mean, just the notion that you can have an Asian character playing these like complex roles is, I mean, that's the mission statement of our website, since Jump. So I like I said, I don't know, once that movie comes out, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I can retire. I'm gonna retire Nerds of Color after that. Like, we
still got Shang-Chi to look forward to, so don't sleep, man.
But anyway, that's it for the movie talk of Shelf Conscious. Let's get back to the actual thing we care about, which is toys. Let me ask you this. So if you've been like, collecting nonstop, that's, first of all, congratulations, because I wish I had that confidence, because I would have a whole bunch more shit in my storage. It would all be in storage, but at least I'd have it. Like, I've already told the Masters of the Universe story. Same thing with all my G.I. Joes. I got rid of them all. I know I held on to like one or two things that I knew were sentimental, like my Superpowers Batmobile. I still have my Keaton '89 Batmobile from Kenner. I still have.
That's what's
So
up.
since you know, didn't never really fall out of favor with collecting, I'm sure that you didn't necessarily hold on to everything since you were a child. But what is the one thing that you've kept from like childhood that you still have, not necessarily in this collection, but maybe at your mom's house, that you still value as like, this was my jam back in the 80s and it still is today?
Man, therein lies the rub. So while I've never shied away from collecting, when I was like maybe I want to say like 92, 93, we moved from Jersey to Massachusetts, and shortly after that move, my mom just gave away all my toys to some random kid I never even met from church without even asking me. She's just like, yeah, I did that. and that was so heartbreaking to me, especially because one of the things I had was one of the times when my aunt visited from Korea, she bought me the General. And that was like, it was such a huge set piece and it was so awesome. And like, I used to take the mortar cannon out and just shoot it like it was like an M60 grenade launcher, like Terminator, you know what I mean? And like so many things. So all that stuff is just gone. And I think that in like a weird way, it may have led to like some like arrested development in some sense, where I've just kind of been chasing that ever since. You know what I mean? As far as like anything that I had, like there really isn't much. But the when they did that 25th anniversary 3.75 line, like I was all in, man. I was just buying all that shit over again. And you know, the urban camo, like Good Guy Storm Shadow, is a huge one that I really cherish. And that fucking butterfly knife Snake Eyes that they redid, and the way that they did it too, like they were removable. So I was like, oh man, it's so cool. It's like not part of the skull.
Those are the, I said, I'm always a proponent for opening toys, but I have to admit the 25th Joes, I've never opened them, just because like you can kind of see them. They're right behind my classified figure. Like just the talking about like, chasing your childhood, the nostalgia of like the card back, and having the figure. And I mean, they are really dope figures. I kind of wish I had two of each because I could open them and then keep them on card. But I've kept all my 25th Joes on card just because like there's such perfect, accurate representations of the old 80s figures. Even like the current retro line that's out now, that's still hard to find. But like if you ever see them in Walmart, the cards are the same, but they're like long. They kind of extended. I don't know. The bubble's weird. I don't know what it is about the new retro line. But yeah, like I have a bunch of those 25th, and I just love looking at them on card just because, that just brings me back to like when I was 5 years old, and back when there were actually rows and rows of like Joe figures on the pegs. Nowadays, like you see one figure on the peg and it's like a miracle. So what's the one toy then that got away? What's the one thing you always wanted, but for whatever, and we're not going to use the flag. I know a couple people have said the flag.
Right.
Everybody fucking wanted the flag. Okay? That's not special that you wanted the flag and you couldn't get it. So what's the one thing other than the USS flag that you wanted but never could get?
This was like past my childhood. I'm a little too young for when this was actually like on the market and stuff. But one of those fucking Boba Fett prototypes with the shooting missile that they canceled. You know what I mean? Like I've always wanted one of those. I recently saw like, I think they're going for around like 17,000 now or something like that. So that's going to continue to be a grail for me.
You'll never don't have to worry about getting that one. Right. I mean, we didn't get a chance to talk about it. Like we spent a lot of time talking about G.I. Joe, but like Star Wars is one of your first loves too. And you brought up Boba Fett, specifically like those Mandalorian figures. What was it about Boba Fett that like made you like, because that's your guy, right? Like of all the characters, I feel like Boba Fett is synonymous with Earl Yee, right?
Oh man. Yeah, dude. I just from the get, you know what I'm saying? I just thought he was so fucking cool. You know what I mean? He barely spoke a word. You know what I mean? He looked cool as hell. And that's the thing I actually realized that was really consistent with all the characters that I really attributed to in my youth, is that a lot of them were masks. You know what I mean? And I don't know if it's that kind of like Spider-Man effect where like you can project yourself onto them or what.
That's exactly what it is. Yep.
like those cats just look cool as hell. You know what I'm saying? So this whole like pandemic stuff, like walking around with masks, like I'm fine with it. You know what I'm saying? I'll keep wearing a mask till the day I die if I can. You know
Exactly. I mean, you know, on my other podcast, Dominic, my co-host, talks about this all the time. Like, as nerds, like this is our time to shine. Like, no one should be complaining about like we get to wear like talk about Cobra. You get to actually like fucking cosplay as Cobra, as a Cobra Trooper every day, and it's totally accepted by most of society. So yeah, no, but I think that's absolutely right about Boba Fett is very similar to Snake Eyes in that, you know, he was a man of few words. He's probably got like 5 lines in all of the original trilogy. Right. and you know, you never see what he looks like underneath. He's just this badass, you know, got this reputation that's really cool, like no disintegration. He's like, what the fuck? He disintegrates people, you know, and it's like he's got that mystery to him. And similar to like Henry Golding, it was revealed he was also AAPI, right? He was a Maori. That was really dope. I remember when Attack of the Clones came out, and it was like, holy shit, like the dopest character in the original trilogy is a brown guy from New Zealand. You know, he's a Pacific Islander. That's fucking awesome, you know?
I was thinking, you know, for a long time, I was like, I could accept the lack of Asian representation in the original trilogy if it was canon that Mandalorians were racially Asian. You know what I mean? Because like you've got Temuera Morrison playing Django and Boba and all the clones. And honestly, dude, I hope that guy had a fucking great deal for his likeness because they're just milking that thing. You know what I mean? But then even in Rebels, you know, Sabine was, you can't really tell, but she's got kind of like a olive skin, you know what I mean?
And she's voiced by an Asian actress, Tia Sircar.
Right. You know, when Rogue One came out and they first started showing Donnie Yen's character, like he had this gauntlet, and I was like, dude, that's a Mandalorian gauntlet. Like, so I just kind of had this whole headcanon where it was like, Mandalorians are Asians, and that's why they're not around, because there's no Mandalorians around. And you know, they've obviously disproven that with the show, and with also earlier in Clone Wars, you know what I mean? All this wonderful stuff.
Right.
Yeah, great stuff that Dave Filoni's been doing there. But you know, whatever, man. For my personal headcanon, that's still like.
Well, at least your guy is right. At least Boba is. Boba is still.
Yeah.
You know, and then he's got his own show with Ming-Na Wen, so that counts. Like she's not Mandalorian, but dude, like there's a Star Wars show with Tamir Morrison and Ming-Na Wen as the leads. I mean,
yeah, I'm so excited. I can't wait.
It's like I was thinking, like for you, that's like Henry Golding and Snake Eyes. You know what I'm saying? It's like all of our dreams are coming true in our.
Yeah, man, you said it. I mean, honestly, I tell this to people all the time, and I'm going to use this podcast as an opportunity to just put this out in the universe, man. My dream would be like kind of a flashback of like origin, like young Boba Fett movie with Daniel Logan in the role again, because the kid or the man grew up to look like a young Temuera Morrison. You know what I'm saying? Casting back then was spot on. You know what I'm saying? And it would be so cool to see him take the role on again. And I would just love to see Joe Johnston directing it. Like he actually designed the armor back in ESP. I have this whole portfolio of sketches that he did, and you know has gone on to be a director of some repute. You know what I mean? Captain America is probably like his most recognizable work, but it's like Rocketeer. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Clearly, the dude knows how to make a movie about a guy with a jetpack. You know what I'm saying?
No, I mean, I'm with you. Like, I actually feel like, as much as I love Tamira in Mandalorian, you know, he's a little too old to play Boba in this time period, right? Like, what, 5 years after Return? Like, Daniel Logan would have been perfect. People, and when I said that on Twitter, people were like, he's too young. But like, not really. That dude's like almost 40, right?
Yeah, he's like right in.
He's the perfect. He's in the sweet spot of like Mandalorian era Boba Fett. And again, no shade to Tamir Morrison. He's great in the show.
Yeah,
but I guess it's that Tatooine son that turns Ewan McGregor into Alec Guinness that makes Boba like a 65-year-old guy when he's really in his 40s. But that's just how the twin sons of Tatooine. I guess
it's the WV dose. You know what I mean?
Well, last thing. So that Boba is your holy grail. What I know you said you don't regret a lot of your Hot Toys purchases, but is there like what's the most expensive thing you wish you never bought?
Man, you know what? I've come not to regret this, but I actually did. I did get I had pre-ordered a Harley Quinn Suicide Squad Hot Toys figure for a girl that I was dating at the time. But then by the time that it released, we weren't dating anymore. But I already had the pre-order. So that was kind of a regret. But in the end, it's actually a really great figure. The head sculpt's fantastic. The accessories are really great. You know what I mean? So
that's right there,
it's an
right?
awesome
I
part
see
of my
it right
collection.
behind you.
Oh yeah, right next to
Deadshot.
Deadshot. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to my Birds of Prey Harley. Just the detail in the caution tape jacket.
The jacket alone, my God.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what that looks like in person. And again, the egg, I'm posing it with the egg sandwich. That's 99% of the reason why I bought it, to be completely.
I'm pretty sure that's mandatory. You know what I mean?
Why else get that if not for that? That's the other thing about a lot of I don't know so much about Hot Toys, but import figures. Mafex has been announcing shit left and right that never comes out. I got the Hush Batman. I think Hush Superman came out, but I don't think anything else ever came out from the Mafex's Hush line. I guess Catwoman came out, but I never got that. Anyway.
Those figures look great, man. I'm still sleeping on them, and I'm really jealous that you got them shits.
Yeah,
they look fantastic.
Hush Batman, I like I said, I was up and down with Mafex because I got burned on the BVS Batfleck, and I had a Mafex Dark Knight that I ended up selling before I even opened it. I think because I had them both in box, and I opened the Batfleck one and it fell apart. I was like, I'm not so sure I want to open the Dark Knight one, but I ended up getting the Figure Arts Dark Knight because I wanted to post something on my Mattel Bat Pod because none of those Movie Masters figures look good. So I need something that looks good on the Bat Pod, man. I had to get a Figure Arts one, but yeah, no, those are definitely my only issue with Figure Arts and Mafex, as much as I love them, is that they don't ever complete a line, so it's hard to get I have 4 of the Justice League. They never made a Cyborg or an Aquaman, so I just kind of have Flash, Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman just by themselves.
Hot Toys just announced Hunter from Bad Batch, and it looks amazing, and it's really cool to see a realistic portrait
with the Tamura. Yeah.
Right. But then I'm just dude, if I get him, I'm gonna have to get the other guys too. I don't know if I want to fall down that path. You know what I mean?
So does the Bad Batch for you count as a Mandalorian? It's canonically Django clone. So are you into it as much for your Mando completists, or is it, or because they're clones it doesn't really count?
No, man, I'm into it. And honestly, dude, everything Dave Filoni's done in Star Wars has just been so wonderful, and that man, as far as I'm concerned, basically single-handedly saved the franchise, because he's just done so much good work, and you can see shades of it all over the place, even in the sequel trilogy. You know what I mean? There are elements of his work in there too. So yeah, dude, I'm all in for the Bad Batch. I'm actually behind. I didn't watch last week's episode, but I'm really digging it. I love the Omega character, and they have an Asian actress playing her also, I believe. Good stuff, man. If it's well done Star Wars, I'm all for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I know Book of Boba Fett is probably your number one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, anything.
It's the difference between any animation and the Mandalorian show, you know what I'm saying? It's so hard to gauge, because take Rebels for instance. That show had so much heart. I was just weeping like a baby, constantly watching that show. But then Mandalorian, to see all this stuff in live action and represented so well and executed so perfectly, you know what I mean? It's a really, really good time to be a fan, I think. You know what I mean?
I wish most fans felt that way, to be honest. So many fans just take this shit for granted, and you really, if you just step back and just let it kind of wash over you, because you're right. Talking about Rebels, there's going to be an Ahsoka show about her finding Ezra. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's because I'm with you. For a long time, Rebels was probably my second favorite Star Wars anything. Next to maybe Empire, right? It was Empire Strikes Back and Rebels and everything else. And it was the fact that they're continuing that in live action. Knock on wood that they bring Tia Serkar back to play Sabine Wren, because I think she, if they can bring Katie Sackhoff in to play Bo-Katan, which is the opposite of the Boba Fett Obi-Wan problem because like she should be in her 50s or 60s or whatever. But anyway, like aging is weird in Star Wars. But anyway, I hope they bring Tia Sircar back because like I can't, same way that folks, you know, associate Katie Sackhoff with Bo-Katan. I can't, you know, associate anyone with Sabine other than Tia Sircar. So like, fingers crossed that they hire her for the Ahsoka show, and that she's in the Ahsoka show, because it'd be fucked up if Sabine Wren is not in the Ahsoka show.
You know, I have yet to go down there, but I've heard that there's this whole kind of like augmented reality game you can play down at Galaxy's Edge where you like read these like datapad entries. And one of them refers to, like, ambiguously, but it refers to Sabine asking for information about Ezra, essentially, like around there or whatever. So, you know, here's hoping, man. Like, it's really cool how they're taking this sort of like extremely multimedia approach, you know what I mean, of like just building that lore. And, you know what I mean, like a lot of people complain about Disney just being this monopoly, essentially, and taking over all these properties. But, you know, as like the selfish part of me as a Star Wars fan, it's like they got the money and they have the interest, you know what I mean? And they've got Dave Filoni.
Yeah. Other than Rise of Skywalker, which I did not love, I feel like Disney has been handling the Star Wars property as best as anyone could have at this point in time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think most of the complaints that you know, the folks who are really pissed off at Disney are the folks that like, I don't want them in the fandom anyway, if you're going to be completely honest. You know what I'm saying? The ones that are like Kathleen Kennedy and SJWs are ruining Star Wars. Like, fuck them.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's neither here nor there. You know, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because we'll be here for another couple hours. But in the meantime, Earl, how can people find you on the interwebs if they want to follow you and your work? And do you have anything you want to plug coming up?
On Instagram, I'm SleepDead S133PDEAD. I actually, for months, I had been agonizing. Maybe I should just start like a sub account to put like, because I didn't want to like dilute my art feed with like collection stuff. So actually, just literally today, I started a collection account. So it's
nice.
Sleep Collection, spelled S133P Collections, or maybe it's collection. I don't know. I just set it up today. It's one or the other. It'll come up in search.
I'll put it in the description, whichever the real one is.
The one thing I will plug is this is actually the thing that I was busy with that I just came off of is Jeff Yang, Phil Yu, Philip Wang, Rise, coming out in October. I've got 4 illustrations that I've contributed to that that I fucking busted my ass on, and I'm really excited, man. The book itself looks super cool, and I'm really excited to have that out there in the world.